Good day. Mike Stenhouse back with you with this week's Progressive Land of Make-Believe Bad Bill of the Week. Now, this bill is a real thorny issue. This is a tough one, but it really highlights the danger of the progressive left's agenda to try to control our lives via government and political correctness. In our American society, this means a loss of free speech and free thought. House Bill 7150 is the epitome, in my view, of how the irrational emotions of the progressive left are now making their way into actual legislation and how they're trying to actually legislate morality. Sponsored by Representatives Grace Diaz and Aaron Regenberg, House Bill 7150 simply says, and it's a very short bill, and I'm paraphrasing, that no pupil in private or public schools should be discriminated against for any reason. And of course, they go on to mention sexual orientation, gender identity, and a whole host of other reasons. Now, conceptually, who would disagree with that? But this bill is frivolous, and we judge it to be of the make-believe variety because, first, of its poor and purposely misleading title, the health and safety of pupils. Putting this purely emotional plea into written legislation ostensibly to protect students is unnecessary. All students, all citizens for that matter, are protected by state and federal civil rights laws. This legislation is nothing more than try to enshrine and advance progressive left values into becoming more mainstream accepted. It's a progressive fantasy also that you can legislate discrimination or any other emotionally driven action. You can't legislate these things away. Should we likewise submit a bill that requires all students be made to feel happy all the time? I mean, this bill is so vague and it's so subjective that it pretends there will be no resulting or unintended consequences. Think of it. In this bill, first of all, there is no definition of what discrimination is or by whom such an offense might be perpetrated. It's one thing if a teacher or administrator systematically ostracizes or bullies a student. That's obvious. But are we at the point in our society where we want second grader on second grader play to now be considered criminal? Would not selecting some student in a recess kickball game now be grounds for discrimination? If a teacher doesn't immediately call on some particular student, is that discrimination? And if so, what happens? Whose interpretation of discrimination are we going to use? What becomes the standard? Who's going to judge this? And then there's the what else question. What happens to the offender? Do they get reported to their parents, reported to the school board, put in the public stockade? What happens? These are very important questions that this bill doesn't even attempt to contemplate. And that's why this bill is so dangerous. Despite its obvious good intentions, such purely progressive fantasy can't be put into law because you can't possibly interpret or enforce such a bill. There is no universally accepted way or objective way to enforce this kind of fantasy legislation. In one vision of a free society, our non-criminal action should not be judged and criminalized by some arbitrary special interest agenda. But in the progressives' land of make-believe, politically correct-driven world, and as we did see and do see in communist nations, our own thoughts and our own free actions may be policed by someone else's standards, set by those elitists in power who want themselves to be appointed and anointed to be judge, jury, and executioner. Which vision of society do you prefer?